Hey, I'm Allison. I have a literacy website called Learning at the Primary Pond, and lately I've been getting a ton of questions about what types of independent centers or independent work activities are good for this current moment in time. So, right now it's 2020, not really a normal year. Most of us are having school years that are at least a little bit impacted by COVID. And I know a lot of teachers are not able to do their normal centers. So, in a normal year for centers, what I like to do is have a combination of independent activities and group activities, mostly partner activities, games, and all that good stuff. But that requires touching, it requires sharing materials. And for a lot of us, that just isn't practical this year. At the same time, we still need our students to be able to practice literacy skills independently, right? We need them to practice, we need them to be engaged. And for a lot of us, it's been a big shift. Like, how do we take what we're normally doing and turn that into something that's fun for kids, but that's also meaningful? So what we're going to go over in this video is just some different ideas that you can implement. And actually, these are ideas that I use and activities that I use during a normal year as well. They're just really simple. They don't require tons of materials. They don't require sharing materials. The kids can work on them independently. So really, these are great for this year, but they're great for any year as well. Just kind of simple, low prep type stuff. Hey Caroline, so glad you could join me. Super glad you're here. I would actually love to hear from everybody else and Caroline. I would love to know if you're doing literacy centers or like Daily 5, or how are you doing stations in your classroom this year? Just curious because I know schools are doing such different things, and I want to make sure that what we're talking about really can be used in whatever kind of setup you have. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments what you are doing for literacy centers or independent work. So we're just going to go over these activities. I will show them to you, talk about kind of like what skills they cover, and everything that I'm going to show you, you can actually make yourself if that's something that you want to do. I do have literacy center bundles, and I did, hopefully if I did this correctly, leave the link in like the little description of the video. So that link is there for my literacy center bundles, and there's also a link to like this freebie where I listed out my literacy centers and which ones can be used for social distancing. So if you use my bundles, you might want to check out that freebie just to see like, okay, I can do this, I can do that, to make the centers bundles, easier to use because they weren't designed for COVID, but you can absolutely use a lot of these activities. Or of course, as I mentioned, you can create them yourself. So Michelle says, not doing centers, virtual. So actually, I should have mentioned that, Michelle. I'm glad that you said this because a lot of what we're doing, your kids can actually do at home as well. So this would be good for remote teaching and just having the kids do some independent activities. Jacqueline says right now we're remote, moving to hybrid in 2 weeks. Again, perfect, Jacqueline, because these are no germ. They don't have to share materials, very simple centers that hopefully will not take a lot of time for you to set up and teach them how to do. All of this takes modeling, right? We want to show the kids what they're expected to do before we assign it to them, but this is pretty, minimal in that area. Okay, so first set of activities is book reviews. So I love book reviews, and I actually have done them in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. Kindergarten's now getting to the point where maybe they can write a little bit, but even if they can't, you can do, and I actually think I have them in my literacy center bundles, you can do very simple things like, what did you think of this book? Like draw a picture about it. And the reason why I love book reviews is because it involves both like literal comprehension of the text, because the kids typically are like writing and including what the text is about, but it also incorporates that higher level thinking of making judgments, right? So what did you think of the book and why did you think that? My literacy center bundles have a variety of different like variations of this, but again, you can create your own. In this one, the kids would just color the little smiley face. You could also just do something simple like thumbs up, thumbs down. And then I have a little sentence starter where the kids draw a picture and they say, this is my opinion because, so they're not just saying I liked it or I didn't like it, they're actually explaining why they did or did not like it. So it's a little bit of opinion writing, also incorporates comprehension of the text. and the kids just enjoy the opportunity to do a review. You can maybe pull up YouTube and see if there's any examples of like kid-friendly reviews of toys so that they understand what a review is. But they love sharing their opinion about books. This can be from a book that they read independently or something that you read with the class. Now, of course, we want to model this, but the good news is that you can model this very easily as part of your normal read aloud or shared reading or whatever other kind of reading activity you're doing. Because, for a couple of days after you read a story to your kids, you can just take one of these sheets. Again, you can make your own too and model how to fill it out. And after the kids have seen you do it a couple of times, then you can say to them, okay, now you're going to do one of these. So it's really easy to model and just takes a few minutes of incorporating into your normal reading lessons. And then the kids have an instant center activity. So this is something that does involve their creativity too. It's a unique idea, right? Something different than you might normally do. You may do this already, but you absolutely can have creative, fun centers that just require a piece of paper. This is just literally a piece of paper. All right, let's see who else is here and what you're doing. So Aurora says our class is a bubble, so the kids don't distance, but the teacher does. Got it. Kristen's going to 100% next week. Linda, Kinder Centers, binders. Got it. Okay. So here's another kind of variation of the book review, and it's a book recommendation. And as you can see, I did a bunch of different sentence starters. So in this activity, a child is writing to another student. Now, obviously, in a normal year, the child could just hand the paper to their friend. This year that might not work. It might need to air out for a while, or maybe they just somehow take a picture and send it to them digitally, right? That could even be done for remote teaching. But anyway, the kids are, so this says, Dear Julia, so it's the child's friend, I'm writing to you to recommend the text, whatever the book is. The author of the text is, I enjoyed reading it because, I think you will like it because, I can't wait to hear what you think, your friend Cameron, or whatever I put. So again, in a normal year, they just hand it to each other. But this is great because it requires higher level thinking skills as well as just, like making judgments, literal comprehension of the text, what's in the text, and then also that social skill of knowing what their friend might like and making a recommendation accordingly. So this one might be easier to do just because it doesn't involve, like giving a letter to a friend, but this is another option. Another option that I don't have an example of is that the child could write a letter to the author of the book and explain what they liked about the book or ask any questions. So that's a slightly different than a book review, but another letter sort of activity. So Caroline, are the kids are doing independent activities even though you can't do like normal centers? Just curious what they're doing on their own. Okay, so another creative activity that just requires a piece of paper, you don't have to use this, but you can of course use this if you use my Literacy Center bundles, is for the kids to design a new cover for the book. Now, this is something that even kinders can do, right? You could also, if you want to, have them make up an alternative title for the book. This is actually really challenging because a good title for the book kind of like encompasses what it's about, right? It might try to intrigue the reader. Your higher kids, especially like maybe your higher first graders or your second graders, that's a great activity for them to just come up with an alternative title for the book. It even requires to some degree main idea, depending on what level they're at. But even your kinders can make a new cover for the book. And so this requires critical thinking. It requires understanding of what's in the book, right? To put something that makes sense. And if for your kinders, it doesn't have to be more than just design it, right? But for the kids that are able, they can actually explain, hey, this is a good cover because X, Y, and Z. So it's like using justification from the text to explain why this cover is a good alternative. So it, involves their creativity. They get to make something new. Again, could just be done on a blank sheet of paper. You don't have to have this, and could involve some extra writing if you wanted to. All right, so also too, this could be done with books that the kids are reading on their own, books you're reading together, really any kind of book. Okay, so Caroline says we can't let kids change seats, all separate seating. So Caroline, all these things we're going to talk about, they can absolutely be done at their seats. That's the nice thing. They don't have to move around. They don't have to share materials or get any special materials. Pretty much all of this just involves like pencils, maybe colored pencils or crayons. All right, here's another activity that has been a favorite of my kids, and there's different things that you can have them make brochures about. Very simple, literally just a piece of paper. I have it tri-folded. It's from my Literacy Center bundle, but again, you can make your own. They can do brochures about all kinds of things. They can do things about like taking care of pets, how to take care of a pet. This one is travel brochures. I know not all of us are not traveling maybe as much as we would like to this year. So this is a chance for them to, they can make up or use real information about a real or imaginary place. They just write a little bit about it and draw it. They can cover as many or as few parts of the brochure as they want. Now, if you've got slightly older kids, they could do a little research. Check Epic. If you don't use Epic Books, it's getepic.com, I think is the website. And they can actually read about different places or different things. And the nice thing about Epic is it will read books to them as well. So they could do a little bit of research on a topic, and then they could turn it into a brochure to teach someone else. And that might just be their family at home. Maybe you let these air out and the other kids look at them. Obviously, we're a little bit limited, but this could still be something that they share with a family member or just share with you, whether it's, through remote teaching a video or just, having you review it afterward. But brochures are super simple, super fun, and they don't have to touch anybody or, use a lot of materials to make them. All right, here is another activity that the kids can do on their own. I've done this a couple of different ways. You can do it with like spinners, or you can do it if you want to make little paper dice where they like roll story parts, and you can have them spin or roll as many things as they want. So this right here says character spinner, and then this says problem spinner. So if you want to, and of course you need to model this, but if you want to give these kids or give the kids these spinners, they would just take a paper clip and a pencil and spin it, and then, they might spin like a friendly dinosaur, and then they have to write a story about a friendly dinosaur, and then they spin again for the problem. So the friendly dinosaur, a school or town is in danger. Maybe the friendly dinosaur saves the school or town from danger. So they spin the character, they spin the problem, and they use those to write a story. A lot of times I do like to let my kids, choose what they're going to write about, but sometimes this is just a nice way to change things up a little bit and give them some fun ideas. This can be done with a partner, but obviously, again, partner writing, not real practical for some of us this year. Maybe a couple of us. I think Aurora mentioned that her kids don't distance, so maybe her kids can do this. But just a fun way to, mix up your narrative writing. Great for if you've been doing narrative writing for a little while. Hey, Wendy, so if you don't want to make these, I do have my Literacy Center bundles that are linked in this post. Hopefully it went through. I don't have them individually, unfortunately, but they're in the bundle. And this is, I think, from the 2nd grade bundle. 1st grade maybe has like roll a story, I think, where there's little dice that you cut apart and make, and then they roll 2 different things, I think, and then they make their little story. Okay, so moving on to something that is very simple but works well for like word work or phonics is a word hunt. So simple, right? You literally just create the little sheet or half sheet, and the kids search through books that they're reading independently. They don't have to go get new books, just whatever they may have in their bag or box. And they take those books and try to find words that have a particular, maybe they start with a certain letter, maybe they have a digraph, like this one is SH, words that have SH in them, and then they just make a list of the words. And so I think most of us, you can let me know if you don't, but most of us have books that are accessible to the kids to read, so all it takes is this little half sheet. And the nice thing about this, first of all, kids love discovering words, and you can really like talk it up and make it so exciting when they find a word in a book that relates to what you've been working on in phonics. So it's a lot of fun, but it's also very meaningful, because when we're teaching phonics, or word study, the whole point of it is for kids to apply that to their actual reading and writing. So when we are having kids actively make those connections, hey, this is the SH digraph, just like we talked about, and it's in a ton of books, that helps them realize, hey, this stuff that I'm learning in word work or phonics, I also need to be using and recognizing in my reading. So it really is good for that in-context practice, helping them make connections. And I love these because there's just like no prep whatsoever. You can even just write it on the board, look for words with this, and then they do it. if you want to like fancy up your whatchamacallit, yeah, your, oh, never mind. This is not what I meant to show you, but what I wanted to tell you is if you wanted to fancy this up at all, you can do kind of a point system. And I only do this with my second graders and up. But like with kindergartners or first graders, they can do a simple word hunt. But with older kids, what I will do is say like, okay, if you find a one syllable word with SH or whatever, it's 1 point. If you find a 2 syllable word with SH, it's 2 points. So you can kind of have them do like a point system. And then when they're done going through their book bag, they can tally up their points and see how many points they got. So that's just a fun little twist on a word hunt. I always start with this, like I keep it very simple, but then, just to keep things interesting later on in the year, like with second grade, I will have that little point system to make it fun. All right, so this is actually kind of along the lines of a word hunt, but slightly different. Again, you don't need this sheet. It is from my literacy centers, but you can absolutely create your own. And in this activity, kids are looking through their books again, books in their book bag, and they are looking for nouns. So you would do this after you teach kids what nouns are, of course. They would have had lots of opportunities to practice, right? But then you'd say, okay, now that you know what nouns are, let's look for them in books. Again, that's so great for the in-context practice where they're not just practicing nouns in isolation during grammar time, they're actually finding examples of nouns in the books that they're reading. So this sheet breaks it down, people, places, things. So they're even thinking in more depth about their nouns. So very simple, just, you could even just write it on the board and they write it on a sticky note or something. It does not have to be fancy at all, but it's connecting the grammar to the reading, and all they need is a book bag. Kristen, I love this idea, so I want to read this out loud. It says, I like to hang the recommendations in the hallway so other students can read it and learn about a new book. Yes. So when I was talking earlier about the book recommendations, I love this because, like Kristen said, it's a great way to get kids intrigued and wanting to read books that they might not ordinarily choose for themselves. So if there's somewhere in your classroom, maybe even by the classroom library or in the hallway, like Kristen mentioned, you can absolutely hang these and then kids might get ideas. This is a way for them to share with each other without having to, share germs and hand them the paper. So I love that, Kristen. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so back to this like scavenger hunt idea. You could call it a safari or a scavenger hunt or whatever you want to call it, whatever makes it fun for the kids. I also have an example of one with adjectives. So adjectives are all over in text, right? And once your kids know what they are, they can make a list for them. And this is almost like what I was talking about with the word hunt. They can, over here, they can tally up how many adjectives they find and then show how many total points they got. So again, super simple, kind of entertaining because they get to see how many points, but they're also practicing grammar in context, not just in isolation, right? And grammar skills are important, but kids need to see how they're relevant to real texts and real writing. So this is a good activity for that. Another scavenger hunt you can do is text features. This is great if you're working on nonfiction. After you have chosen or after you have covered different text features and the kids really know what they're all about, you can do something like this. Again, you can make your own. This is from my Literacy Center bundles, but you can absolutely make your own. I included the little pictures of the different text features just because I feel like my kids sometimes confuse them, like caption or label can be confusing. So I gave them actual pictures of what they are, and then they're tallying up how many they find. It could be one book with a lot of them. It could be multiple books, up to you. I also had them include the page numbers so that I could actually see that, they weren't just making up, that they had like 5 labels or something like that. So they include the page numbers over here. And then if you want, again, you can do like a point thing where how many total points did you get for all these different text features. So again, all it takes is them having a book bag, super simple. When your more advanced kids get into things like suffixes or prefixes or, root words or whatever, depending on how old they are and how advanced they are, you can again have them look for different suffixes or whatever you're working on in the context of books. So really similar to like the word hunt, but applying what they're learning about, the different word parts. All right, I think the last thing I have for you is actually one of my favorites. So this is something that, like, some of these were, more appropriate for first or second grade, but I've absolutely done this with my kindergartners. They're little flip books, and the easiest kind of flip book, right? I am always so impressed by teachers that have like the most complicated crafts and stuff like that. It's just not me. But I like these because they're like a simple flip book. I guess I didn't fill anything out, but the kids would, after they listen to a story or even after they read a story, they would like do the setting. So they draw a picture of it, and then they would do the characters. Again, it's just very simple. Mine, I also put like the kid's name and then the book title on the back. But once kids know, even kindergartners, once they know what the characters and setting of a book are, they can absolutely make one of these. And if you teach older kids, it doesn't have to be just drawing. They can write a sentence or two. You can make it, whatever they're ready for. So I've done characters and setting. I've done problem and solution. So hopefully it's not backwards for you. It might be, but write the problem, draw a picture, either or. And then I've also done one that's vertical for beginning, middle, and end. And so they would draw or write like, whatever happened in each part of the story. So very simple. Literally all you do is you take a piece of paper, and again, you could like just write or type. You take the piece of paper like this, you cut 2 little flaps, you fold it in half, and you're ready to go. I usually pre-cut these for the kids, especially with kindergarten. I don't want them messing it up and becoming frustrated. But you can make a bunch of these and just have them on hand, and maybe they get to choose once they know how to do them, right? You have to model and make sure that they actually know how to do this stuff. But maybe eventually or later on in the year, they get to choose. Do they want to do this one or this one? Just a fun little thing. Reader response, it can be to a book that you read or they read, whatever you want to do. Okay, so feel free to start typing any questions if you have them, or if you have centers that have worked well for you, I would love to hear about those. We're mostly focusing on center activities that don't require a lot of, like extra materials or touching. So Elizabeth's asking, where can we get it? So I don't have the individual activities, but I do have the bundles, and those should be linked in this post. Facebook changed a little bit, and I'm not 100% sure where to tell you to look, but you can also message me if you can't find it. There's links in there for the Literacy Center bundles. There's also a link to a freebie that explains, if you're doing socially distanced teaching, these are the literacy centers from my bundles that you can use. So that will help you quickly pull out the things that you want to do. Last but not least, if you have a teacher friend who just could use some more ideas or is struggling with, just modifying centers because this year is so different, feel free to tag them. Would love to share this with as many teachers as possible. Everything we talked about, you don't have to use my Literacy Center bundles. You can absolutely make this stuff. We covered so many things, right? We covered reader response. We covered some writing with the spin a story. We covered even some word work with, the word hunts, some grammar. There's so many different things that you can do with just paper and a book. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to type them. I can always come back and answer them later. I hope that you are safe and healthy. I hope that this year is going as smoothly as possible. If there's anything that I can help you with, feel free to message me, and thank you so much for watching.